It is very possible that I am a curse, which makes me very nervous because over the past probably 10 or so days, I have had Jacob deGrom, Tyler Glasnow, Max Scherzer, and then Jacob deGrom again as either my number one or number two pitcher of the night on days where they have left the game early due to injury. Tonight, my top guy is Shohei Ohtani. And as someone who would do anything to protect Shohei Ohtani, it makes me very nervous and also feel kind of guilty to put him number one on my list. But I feel like when I look at this slate, I kind of got to do it. So whatever manifestation vibes you can send out the good vibes to Shohei Ohtani, keep him safe from the Jim curse. Let's lock him in for DFS for tonight. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sanis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to preview tonight's 8-game main slate with lock set for 7:07 this evening. There is nothing big to note from a weather perspective for today. No super outlierish temperatures, so we should be good to go for tonight's slate. Also, make sure you tune back in today at 4 p.m. for our Q&A session, final one of the week. We do not have a Q&A session on Friday because Dr. Disrespect is going to swing by the FanDuel YouTube page. He'll be on Friday afternoon, so final stream of this week is today. That'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern. FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Make sure you tune in there. Get your questions in about tonight's MLB DFS slate. Maybe send additional good vibes to Ohtani through the comments section there as well. Also, make sure to check out the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed because, of course, we have our this podcast there every day. But also, tomorrow, UFC with Austin Swaim and a NASCAR podcast for Nashville. Those will be in your podcast feeds tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. It is always exciting when a player scores a goal in the Euros, but this year it is twice as exciting because FanDuel is paying out double the winnings when you bet on a player to score during a Euro 2020 game. Just sign up for FanDuel Sportsbook and pick your goal scorer for a shot at 2 times the payout in a tournament featuring some of the best goal scorers in the world. You'll have plenty of options to choose from, but no matter who you pick, FanDuel will double your payout up to $250, and you'll have your bonus in less than 72 hours. There's no better place to bet Euro 2020 than FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 plus and present in Colorado, Iowa, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. New users only. First real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as a non-withdrawable set credit that expires in 7 days. Max bonus $250. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Colorado, call 1-800-522-4700. In Iowa, 1-800-BETS-OFF. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. For confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-270-7117. In Tennessee, call the Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. Or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Pitching preview for the Thursday main slate. Shohei Ohtani is the highest salaried pitcher on FanDuel for today. He checks in at $11,000, followed by Brandon Woodruff at $10,800. Marcus Stroman is $9,900. Dylan Cease facing the Astros is $92,000. German Marquez facing Brandon Woodruff at Coors Field is $9,000. Then we have Kyle Hendricks, Joe Musgrove, Rich Hill, and Charlie Morton as the others at $8,000 or higher. And with Ohtani, I have been hesitant to use him at pitcher all year long. And it's a combination of a lot of things. It's been low pitch counts. He's been ineffective with a lot of walks at times. So the injuries have been there too. And I've been wary of him as a pitcher, but I think I'm finally going to do it tonight. I like him a lot against Detroit. Hopefully, again, the curse stays away. The matchup is a part of it for sure. The Tigers against righties have a 90 WRC plus with a 27% strikeout rate. That is the second highest strikeout rate on the main slate. And Ohtani himself is getting plenty of those. I think it's most relevant to look at Ohtani in the games since his velocity dip because it's a lot different to average 94 miles per hour on the fastball than 97. In those 4 starts, if you look at Ohtani in those 4 starts, since the velo went down, he still has a 31% strikeout rate. His skill interactive ERA is 3.37, and his swinging strike rates have been at least 14% in each of his past 2 starts. The pitch count has been fine in that time as well. He's gone 93, 76, and 86. 76 is not ideal. And that's rough. but the 93 means they will let him go if he's pitching well enough. And in the 76 pitch game, he still went 6 innings and got 10 strikeouts. He basically went to DeGrom in that one, which is a scary parallel here. But if they give Ohtani a full leash tonight, by full, I mean 90 plus pitches, I feel like he could have an upside game for sure. There aren't a lot of pitchers on this slate in great situations, and it makes me feel like this is the ideal time to unleash Ohtani from a pitching perspective in DFS. He's fun to root for, and DFS is supposed to be fun, so I think it'll be profitable too. So tonight's the night where I finally lock in Ohtani as a pitcher, and I am pumped to do so. Hopefully the curse stays away because I really enjoy watching him and would not want that taken out of our lives. Let's just send the good vibes out to Shohei Ohtani for tonight. As far as the other pitching options for today, it's a little bit muddy, and there are a lot of issues. Like 2 of the best pitchers in the slate are at Coors Field. If I'm looking for a second pitcher, I feel pretty okay about this. And I feel pretty firm in saying that Joe Musgrove is my number 2 guy. That's despite the fact he's been pretty wild recently. He had a start against Milwaukee where he had a no-hitter in the 5th inning and then absolutely imploded and didn't even finish that inning. He has not been going super deep into games, but he's still been effective. The peripherals here are great, and that's enough for me to be on Musgrove for tonight. He is facing the Reds. That is a very tough matchup. They have a 112 WRC plus versus righties, tons of power, and they're not a big strikeout team either. But if I'm going to use a pitcher against Cincinnati, I want it to be in a pitcher's park to help rein that power in. And San Diego is that. Temperature is 72 degrees for tonight. That's not going to nullify their power, but it does at least reduce the impact of it. Musgrove isn't the same pitcher he was when he threw his no-hitter earlier this year. He's lowered his cutter usage since that time, but even in the 8 starts with fewer cutters, Musgrove has still had awesome peripherals. He has a 2.92 skill interactive ERA with a 32% strikeout rate and a 5% walk rate. He has let up some impactful contact, but it's not bad. His 38% hard hit rate and 35% fly ball rate are actually both slightly better than the league average. When you pair that with the plate discipline numbers, that's a good pitcher. Musgrove went 99 pitches 2 starts ago. He should have the length that we need, and I think it's enough to put him second behind Ohtani for tonight. If I had alternatives, like if Woodruff were facing the Rockies in Milwaukee, I wouldn't put Musgrove number 2, but he's not. So to me, I think that Musgrove does deserve to be the number 2 pitcher on tonight's slate. For the third pitcher, I think you could consider both the guys at Coors Field. Technically, Musgrove counts as my value play for tonight, $8,500. So that's Woodruff and Marquez. I want to talk about them, and I will talk about them in things to watch. My preferred route, though, is actually another value play in Charlie Morton. He is $8,200. He is at home against the Cardinals, and it hasn't been a great year for Charlie. He has a 4.50 ERA through 13 starts. But the underlying numbers here are better. He has a 3.78 skill interactive ERA with a 26% strikeout rate. It does seem like he's tinkering, trying to make some strides out there. Over his past 7 starts, Morton has thrown fewer sinkers and more curveballs, and things have still been pretty similar in that split to his overall numbers. 3.73 skill interactive ERA, 26% strikeout rate. But in that time, he's also allowing just an 18% fly ball rate, so killing a lot of worms. The hard hit rate against him is 32%, and he's done that against some tougher offenses. He did, in that span, face the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, and the Dodgers, and he didn't let up more than 3 runs to any of those teams. He had 7 innings of 1-run ball with 9 strikeouts against the Red Sox. So basically, when you look at the walk numbers, you look at the batted ball numbers, Morton is a good overall pitcher who can get some strikeouts. That's a good recipe when a guy's at home in a decent matchup. And I think that is enticing, especially when his salary is $8,200. So I think that Morton is definitely behind Musgrove for me, but if I were choosing between Morton and the guys at Coors Field, I'd give the edge to Morton. So to me, it's going to be Ohtani 1, Musgrove 2, Morton 3. We'll talk about Woodruff and Marquez in things to watch. Let's go to the stacks first, though, and 2 of my favorite stacks tonight are actually in the exact same game. That is in Buffalo for the Blue Jays and the Yankees. The Blue Jays facing Michael King, and he's had a rough schedule so far. He had his first start against Detroit. That was his first full start, and that's not a bad matchup. But since then, he's faced Boston and Minnesota, two pretty good offenses. Now it stays rough as he faces the Blue Jays. So I think we should stack Toronto here and see if the struggles for King will continue. He has had some rough numbers in those three starts, 4.96 skill attractive ERA with an 18% strikeout rate. He has let up a lot of hard contact and enough fly balls for us to get by for stacking. That's in line with what happened when King was a reliever earlier in the year. And it's also in line with what we saw last year. Overall, King doesn't look like someone who will be overpowering, which means that he needs to be a standout with his batted ball data to get by as a viable big leaguer. It doesn't like he will do that. The game is in Buffalo, not super warm there for tonight, but I still like the Jays quite a bit here, and I'm fine putting them at the top of my list for stacking. We should be able to get to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well. I know it's tough with Ohtani at 11,000, but I was able to get to Acuna and Freeman with Jacob deGrom last night, so I think we can make Vlad work. And there's a lot of value in the middle part of this order. Randall Grichuk is $3,300, but we have Teoscar Hernandez and Rowdy Tellez likely batting 5 and 6. Grichuk is $2,700. We have Tellez at $2,300. All three of those guys are fly ball hitters, and none of them have a restrictive number of strikeouts. So hopefully Tellez is in there, because if we get him and Grichuk in the mid 2,000 range, that's going to make it a lot easier to get to Vlad. It does mean we'll need value elsewhere, but I think we should be able to get that for tonight. So the Blue Jays, my top stack of the day, and number 2 is in the opposing dugout. That is the Yankees facing TJ Zeuch. Zeuch is coming up for a spot start here, and it looks like a matchup we will want to attack. Zeuch was in the big leagues earlier this year. He had a 6.35 skill interactive ERA across 12 innings, and the results were rough too, not just the peripherals. So Zeuch got sent down to the minors as a result of what happened there, and things didn't get a ton better for him in AAA. He had a 4.37 ERA there. His strikeout rate was just 16%, and he let up a ton of balls in play. There are just two things that push me to rank the Jays higher between these two teams. The first one is that Zeuch will get some ground balls. It's not enough to push me off, but it's at least a consideration here. And second, the Blue Jays are just a better offense right now than the Yankees. I just trust their offense more. They have a better WRC plus against righties, better power numbers. They're at home, but that's truly picking nits. Like, I'm just saying why I'm ranking the Blue Jays higher and not saying you shouldn't use the Yankees as a result of those things. The Yankees would be the top stack on a lot of slates. They just happen to be in the same game as the Jays, and I prefer the Jays for tonight. So these will be my top 2 stacks of the night, the Blue Jays versus the Yankees, and I think both are really solid standout slates standout stacks across even larger slates. I want to talk about Gary Sanchez here for a second. Seems like he's making some pretty big strides at the plate. I used to use him just against lefties because his strikeout rate would go down a lot versus them. And I might be willing to use him against righties now too, finally. His strikeout rate is still at 32% versus righties, so it's high, but I would say it's manageable. It comes with a 41% fly ball rate. He gets a boost against a low strikeout pitcher like Zeuch as well. So I am warming up to Sanchez. I haven't been super into him personally, but it gives me a viable play in the mid-range when stacking this team. So I do think that he works. Gio Urshela weirdly has had better numbers versus righties this year from a peripheral perspective. So I think that we should be able to get some value from the Yankees, and Sanchez, not a value play, but he is not high salaried either, and someone I am warming to as we get further into the year. For our third stack, we talked about Ohtani earlier, and because he is a pitcher for today, we can't use him as a hitter. It's just a pitcher on FanDuel. But I would like to use his teammates because they still benefit from Ohtani being in the order. Even if he's not, we can't use him for stacking. Every time he gets a base hit, that means it extends the inning, gives more volume, gives more run scoring and RBI chances for his teammates. They still benefit from Ohtani being there, even if we can't use him as a hitter on FanDuel for today. They're facing Matt Manning. The Angels are. Manning is a big prospect for Detroit, and he's getting the call up here. The promotion for Manning wasn't due to what he was doing in AAA. He was actually struggling quite a bit down there. Across 7 starts, he has an 8.07 ERA with a 4.36 xFIP. His strikeout rate was 25%. That's even with strikeout rates being largely very high across the minors this year. And we also saw Manning lose some of the batted ball skills he had back in 2019. In 2019, his ground ball rate was 47%. That was in AA. This year, it's 36% in AAA. So Manning is getting a promotion, but it's not like he forced their hand and made them promote him. The Tigers honestly have nothing to lose. So like, why not? He's a good pitcher, probably long term. Might as well see what he has and throw him out there. But I think we should look to stack against him right away here, which means stacking the Angels tonight, even though we cannot use Ohtani. There's still plenty of guys we can use in this lineup. I love Jared Walsh. Nothing has changed there. He's still tremendous. Justin Upton, weirdly good against righties this year, kind of similar to Sanchez, where 205 ISO for Justin Upton, a lot of fly balls. And I think we can also use Max Stassi. Stassi is a guy, we think of mostly versus lefties, but he's putting up good numbers against righties too. So we can make it work, even if it is a bummer we'll have to skip over Ohtani. So I would say check out Upton, Walsh, Stassi, see what they've got. So hopefully Anthony Rendon's healthy enough to go. But the Angels, pretty good stack for today. And if you're going with Musgrove or Morton, you can get to all those guys we discussed without straining yourself elsewhere. Let's finish up with things to watch for this Thursday slate. I do think that both Brandon Woodruff and German Marquez are worth considering at Coors Field. The reason I didn't get to Woodruff above Morton is salary related. Woodruff is 10-8, and that's pretty outrageous for a pitcher at Coors Field. And a lot of times we think when there is a pitcher at Coors Field, we'll get them at a roster rate discount. That didn't happen with Yu Darvish when he was at Coors a couple nights ago. I think he was like the third or fourth most rostered player. You can find the roster rates up on numberFire.com. That's a pretty big bummer because that's one of the appeals of using a pitcher at Coors is decreased popularity. Didn't get that with Yu Darvish. So Woodruff in play, but does get dinged because probably not going to get him at a roster rate discount and definitely not at a salary discount. Marquez pitches really well at home and the Brewers still strike out. So I'm down for both these guys, but that's why they're ranked 4th and 5th for me, with Woodruff being 4th, Marquez being 5th. That's the reason they're not higher. But I still think they're both in play. So if you're filling out a lot of lineups, you want to differentiate a pitcher, you're worried about Ohtani, worried about Musgrove, totally fine. I think that both those guys would be viable options you could turn to after those other options. There are a couple other stacks I think are worth considering here. The first one is the Rays, and I think the Rays are actually like, on most slates, they'd be a top 3 stack. They're just, they wind up being 4th for today, but that's because there are good stacks elsewhere. The Rays are facing Justin Dunn in Seattle, so it's not a good park factor, but Dunn struggled last week in coming off the injured list. He let up 5 earned runs in that game. His spin rate was way down, and it could be due to the sticky stuff. I feel like it's probably more likely it's due to the injury he was coming off of, but either way it happened and it led to ineffectiveness. So I think stacking the Rays is worthwhile here. Another good offense versus righties. So that's comforting to have some good offenses on our stacking list for today. The other one to consider is the Braves. They're facing John Gant, who is potentially the most frustrating pitcher to stack against. He gets a ton of ground balls, and it's miserable to stack against him. But because of the plate discipline numbers against Gant, you can still get big outings against him. He let up 5 runs across 1 2/3 innings last time out. He let up 7 earned runs the time before. So I would rank the Braves 5th behind the Blue Jays, Yankees, Angels, and Rays, but the Rays are still firmly on my radar. So it's a really good night for stacking. We've got these 5 options I feel pretty good about. 4 I feel great about if you add the Rays in there too. So overall, good night for stacking, and given the viability of Musgrove and Morton, you can stack pretty much whoever you want. I think that's going to lead to some fun lineups for today. We can talk more about that and which studs to prioritize today during the 4 p.m. stream on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. So make sure you tune in then, get your questions in, and let's have some fun for tonight in MLB DFS. Do not forget to subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, radio.com. No matter where you get your podcasts, you can find us. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review as well. If you have questions for me before 4 p.m., I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video broadcast for today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you for tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the Solo Shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.